Hey everybody, it's Shamika. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and share my videos. I appreciate your support. I wanted to talk about divorce and taxes. More importantly, when you are divorcing and you have to pay separate maintenance payments and or alimony payments. Most time when people get divorced, taxes are the very last thing that individuals discuss. And I am here to hopefully remind you to put it in the forefront, okay? I can't stop you from getting a divorce if that's something that you choose, but I will tell you it is cheaper to keep her, and I'm going to explain exactly why, okay? Now, before we start, I want to tell you there are two parties involved in a marriage, which I'm sure you already know, but for the sake of this video, I want to call them something different. It's not going to be called husband and wife. It's going to be called paying spouse, the one that pays, receiving spouse, the one who collects, okay? So we got the paying spouse, we got the receiving spouse. Now, how it works, and this is pertaining to the IRS, so please don't jump down my throat and don't jump down the tax preparer's throat either, okay? This is something that you need to know because this is your taxes and you are responsible, okay? Now, my four scenarios are gonna be, comes directly from the IRS, but I want to make sure I explain it where it makes sense to you guys so that you know exactly what it is you need to do as it pertains to your taxes. Okay? And hopefully, when you get a divorce, if you get a divorce, you know exactly what to go in and ask for because you're going to be smart, you're going to be wise, and you're going to be ahead of the game, and you're going to know exactly what it is you need to do and ask the judge for. Okay? So, follow me down the rabbit hole while we go. Four scenarios. Scenario number one, if you divorce after January 1, 2019, and you are required to make alimony or separate maintenance payments, the paying spouse is fully responsible for the income they earn and fully responsible for the tax liability of the income they earn. The receiving spouse does nothing but this, okay? Meaning, if the paying spouse earned $50,000 a year and you had to pay a portion of your income to the receiving spouse, your receiving spouse does not have to do anything. They do not count that income as income. So the money you give them is not income, and they do not have to pay taxes on the money they receive. Now, do I think it's fair? Well, it depends on which person I am, okay? If I'm the receiving spouse, it's definitely fair. If I'm the paying spouse, it's definitely not fair, okay? So please keep that in mind in the event you are getting a divorce, okay? Because this is the current rule. Anything after January 1, 2019, that is how the IRS is telling you that they are requiring you handle the money, okay? So again, anything after January 1, 2019, the paying spouse is fully responsible for the income and they are fully responsible for the taxes on that income, regardless of what they paid the receiving spouse. Scenario number two, if you got a divorce before January 1, 2019, then the receiving spouse has to count that money as income and pay taxes on that portion of the money they received from the paying spouse. That is anyone who has gotten a divorce before January 1, 2019. The receiving spouse is responsible for both the taxes and counting the income. All right? Scenario number three. If you got a divorce before January 1, 2019, which means you would fall into the previous category where the receiving spouse would the receiving spouse would count that income and pay taxes. Here's the difference in the third scenario. If you amended your divorce decree and you changed the amount of alimony or separate maintenance, if you change that dollar amount, the IRS is going to look at that as a brand new divorce decree, which means you no longer fall under the rules of previous or prior to January 1, 2019. You now are going to be in the January 1, 2019 category, which means the paying spouse is going to be fully responsible for the income and the taxes. So if you are going to amend your divorce decree, make sure you do not amend anything having to do with money, so that you don't have to now be put into the new category of what happens to the people who are divorcing now, January 1, 2019 and later, okay? Fourth scenario, this is the one I want you guys to pay attention to the most. If you have not divorced yet. Now, The only way to get out of this without having to have your the receiving spouse count the full income and pay the taxes is the only way you're going to get out of that is the judge is going to have to put in the divorce decree that the receiving spouse will be responsible for counting the money as income and paying taxes on that money. But the only way you can override the IRS's rules is by a judge who states that, and it's clearly defined in the divorce decree. Now, if this is you, okay, you just recently got a divorce, and you want to know how this is, handled at tax time, and or you've been divorced and you just didn't know how it was handled, right? You've probably been getting the information wrong. I just want to let you guys know that if your divorce decree is different than what the IRS is requiring, meaning you just got a divorce in 2023 and the IRS says that the paying spouse is responsible for the income and the taxes, but your divorce decree says the receiving spouse is responsible for the income and taxes, then all you need to do at tax time is upload your divorce decree, and tax software does allow it to be done. If you cannot upload to the tax software, then what you need to do is do not e-file your taxes. You need to print and mail, because the IRS is going to question why you did not count your full income. They're going to want to know why, okay? And I'll tell you this. Remember, the IRS receives the 1099 or a copy of the W-2 from your employer, all right? So they're going to already know how much income you made. So if you made $50,000, but you're only putting in $30,000 because you gave $20,000 to your the receiving spouse, they're going to want to know where's the difference, okay? First thing first, your tax preparer needs to know where to include that money to deduct it, okay? Because when they put in your W-2 or that 1099 or whatever it is, they're going to put in the full income. But in order to only have you be responsible for the portion that you actually had to be responsible for, because the receiving spouse is going to pay the rest, you need to make sure that they are deducting that income, okay, by your tax preparer should put this on a Schedule 1, which is adjustments to your income. So if you made 50 grand and you only want to count 30 because you paid 20 to the receiving spouse, they will need to put 20,000 under the alimony section on the Schedule 1. So you guys need to make sure they are doing that, because you don't want to pay taxes on money that you're not supposed to, all right? And again, like I said, if you are not able to upload the divorce decree, okay, then you need to print out your taxes and mail it so that the IRS doesn't ask you any questions. And if they do, they already have the proof as to why you did not or why you adjusted your income, especially after January 1, 2019. Because remember, and I'm just going to keep saying this till it sticks in your head, January 1, 2019, the receiving spouse does not count it as income and they do not pay taxes on it unless the judge put it in a divorce decree that the receiving spouse will. And the only way the IRS is going to know that is by you sending them proof. So those are the 4 scenarios. And again, I always have to run it back to make sure you guys didn't get lost, because y'all know I can talk, okay? So the first scenario is January 1, 2019. Anyone who got a divorce from January 1, 2019 and later, the paying spouse is responsible for income and taxes. If you got a divorce before January 1, 2019, the receiving spouse is responsible for paying taxes on the portion of money they receive, and they also have to count that money that was paid to them, the alimony or separate maintenance payments, okay? If you got a divorce prior to January 1, 2019 and amended your divorce decree, but you changed the payment amount, then you unfortunately fall into the same category as individuals who just got divorced January 1, 2019 or later. The receiving spouse is going to be responsible for that because you amended the payment amount. The IRS is going to look at that as a brand new divorce decree because it is new, because it's changed. Now, the last and final scenario is if you want your receiving spouse to count that money that you're giving them as income and to count that and to be responsible for the taxes on that money, then you need to make sure it's in the divorce decree. You need to make sure that you do not e-file your taxes. You need to make sure you print out your taxes and attach that divorce decree. Send it to the IRS because they are going to want to know why you did not do what they said you are supposed to do. That's the only difference if a judge says you don't have to. Okay? That a judge or a court of law trumps what the IRS says. They do not go, back and forth with the courts. If the court says this is how it is, the IRS is like, hey, cool, we're done. We're down with it, okay? So I hope you guys learned something. I hope I wasn't talking too fast, but I also want to thank, I'm not going to say his name, but thank you because we went over this, and after talking to you, I was like, geez, this is very good content for my viewers. And although I don't want anybody to get into divorce, please stay married. And it is cheaper to keep her, as y'all can see. At least you know how to divorce. Divorce smartly. And if you are worried about being the person that's going to make those payments to the receiving spouse, make sure that your lawyer or you or whomever, make sure the judge knows that you want them to be responsible for the income and the taxes and not you. Okay? Hope I helped you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.